right, welcome to the Real Estate Jam session. Today I've got Benjamin Osgood. Benjamin's a founder and managing director of Recreate Realty up in San Francisco. Benjamin, thank you for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe.
I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. You know, everything I hear about San Francisco, the theft, there's nobody living there, homeless issues. Is it as bad as everybody's saying it is?
It's really not. You know, a lot of it's clickbait.
Yeah.
And I think San Francisco's been such a media darling for so long that I think it's, you know, you win too many championships and people start to dunk on you.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. The attrition that we're seeing is not, it's been accelerated because of COVID, but we always have an ebb and flow of
Right.
attrition in any gateway city. Right. Of course, again, it's been accelerated, but the headlines don't really tell the real story. And the real story is, I mean, we just absorbed in the last quarter almost 2 million square feet of new space.
Oh, you did?
Is it below our average? Yeah, about 1.8 million square feet just in the last quarter alone.
Okay.
We've got companies that are making major commitments to San Francisco. There have been huge office renewals here. You've got expansions from, I mean, Chime just leased 100,000 square feet over at 101 California Street. Companies really haven't unplugged from San Francisco. And the companies that we kind of knew they were going to do that long before COVID started.
Okay.
Some of them were because of, I wouldn't say San Francisco's the problem. I would say Sacramento's the problem a lot of times. Our business climate and the taxation has not been as attractive as other states like your Floridas and your Texas. Mm-hmm. But all in all, I was at dinner last night in North Beach and it was like COVID hasn't even happened. So the streets were packed, people are back. I feel that one of the reasons why the Bay Area continues to remain so resilient is obviously the epicenter of the venture capital world and in Silicon Valley, but also our access to a diverse and talented new labor pool coming out of the education systems of like Stanford and Cal. And then generally it's just a really nice place to live. So
it's not too bad, is it?
Yeah, we got some major challenges though. We are struggling with homelessness. We're struggling with retail theft, organized retail theft. And
Benjamin, is it as bad? I mean, the news down here shows that, you know, it's like every day somebody's walking into a store and grabbing armfuls of goods and walking out. Is that really the case, or is it just kind of the press is making it look like it's happening every day?
It is the case in very specific areas. Okay. So it's not unlike any city or gateway city in the country right now. Right. There are neighborhoods that are getting hit really, really hard.
Yeah, we see it here in Los Angeles.
Exactly. I mean, I just was in LA last week, and I couldn't believe coming along the Cahuenga Pass, the tent city that I saw. That I never used to be there. So you know, it's a challenge we're faced with, that most cities are faced with right now. Is it as bad as the media reports? No, we're not. There's not looting in the streets, and you know, it's not bad. But yeah, I will say that there are, you know, mid-market neighborhoods, Hayes Valley, the Tenderloin, they're really bad right now, and it's organized retail theft. These aren't just, you know,
it isn't just random people walking in.
Yeah, they're fencing it, and they're part of a larger network.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, one thing that always excites me about San Francisco, like you'd mentioned, is not just the education pool that's there, but the tech. You know, you got the VCs. And I know that entrepreneurship over the last couple of years, people have really seen opportunities to create these new companies. I would think are you seeing coming into San Francisco, is it more young entrepreneurs that are doing startup, or is it bigger tech companies that are starting to take some of that, or taking up the space?
You know, it's a combination. We're seeing some of the larger companies like your Amazons and Facebooks, they're continuing to lease space, whether it be Amazon taking down, you know, another 200,000 square feet of office in Sunnyvale, or Facebook expanding their footprint. but then I think this environment has created a lot of opportunity for younger startups to begin and thrive. So part of it is just, we've got 20 million square feet of available office space in a market of 74 million square feet. And
Right.
it's at bottom prices right now.
Yeah.
And you've got really well-priced subleases that are fully furnished. So companies are thinking, well, gosh, one of our biggest barriers to entry before was our operating expenses, in office at $95 a square foot. And now we can get started for almost nothing, and we can deploy that capital into other resources, whether it be marketing or human resources. So
Yeah.
we've seen a ton of startup activity. And I read an article yesterday, I wish I could have remembered the number, but there was the largest infusion of VC capital ever happened this year. So I think there's opportunity, and obviously adversity it helps fuel that invention, right? So
Right. Yeah.
okay, here's an opportunity to do something better, make something new, disrupt this.
Sure. Yeah.
It's an exciting time. We're working with a lot of companies in the DeFi space and crypto sector, and the decentralized, financial networks are really exciting and what they can do.
Absolutely. Now, are you investing in crypto? Or are you going that far?
I mean, I have to, who's not?
If you've got a client, you damn well better be.
I got 3 or 4 clients.
I think a lot of it though, these VCs like to have they prefer their companies to be local too. They want to know that if something's not going right with one of their investments, they can jump into a card. You keep hearing about mass exodus to Austin. They have VCs there already. I think you're going to see a lot of investments going to stay here in tech in Southern California, or in Northern California, in Southern California.
I totally agree. I mean, I think that there's room to share, and I think it's great that there's some distribution among other cities, and it's not just so focused on the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I've seen the Bay Area go through several cycles now, and we've always been very resilient. I think also the decentralized workforce is starting to really kind of cool off in a lot of ways, because a lot of companies are realizing that it's expensive to have a distributed workforce from a tax perspective, from healthcare benefits, workers' comp.
Yeah,
it's tough to have an employee that says, "Oh, I moved to Australia and I kind of want to stay here," or "I moved to Texas and I want to stay here." And now you got to fly them out once a quarter, and now you got to pay workers' comp in both states. And now it's like, oh, what do we do for healthcare for them? Well, they're out of the Kaiser network now, so now we got to get them a PPO with someone else. And
it's created a whole new way we really have to look at things. And now, how are lease rates in San Francisco in office? Are they staying? Have they come down a good amount, or about what percentage have they come down? Or what's that?
Yeah, that's a great question. To understand the impact of COVID on lease rates, it really depends on if it's a sublease or direct space.
Right.
So I would say generally, and this is right now, and it kind of goes like this, depending on if there's news of a vaccine,
sure,
if there's a booster, if there's news of a new variant. But generally, the institutional owners and the larger landlords have only come off their lease rates maybe 20%.
Okay.
Maybe 25%. And they're willing to just kind of ride it out and carry those zeros on their balance sheet for a while until we move back to some type of normalcy. Now, on the sublease front, we've been able to accomplish discounts as high as 50-60%. And a lot of companies are still, this is different than the recession where companies were not healthy.
Right.
The companies are still very healthy. They just weren't going into the office. So looking at these monthly operating expenses, and they're saying, okay, if we can recover 50% of that, cool. Our business is thriving. Our employees are doing fine working from home or working remotely. And they're willing to take a deep cut because they're looking at it almost as like a profit center.
Right.
And those now with that though, a lot of it, we hit a peak of about 9.5 million square feet of sublease space in our market, which is, that's like, 8% of our market. I mean, that's a ton of space, or 10% of our market. And the best stuff has been picked over. And so there's not a lot of great sublease space left on the market that's high value, fully furnished, because there's no new supply of sublease space hitting the market.
Right.
It's, in a normal market, there's always new sublease supply coming
Sure.
out. So, and anyone who was going to sublease by now has put their space and successfully sublet it. Now, an interesting trend that has been really gaining momentum is that a lot of sublease space is coming off the market, not because they found a subtenant, but because the company has reversed their decision on letting it go. And they've you know what, we're taking it off the market. We're going to go back in January. And I've had 2 deals recently fall apart in the 11th hour because I was representing the subtenant, and the sub landlord's broker said, "You're gonna hate me, Benjamin, but it's hard to tell you, but we're gonna have to rescind our letter of intent because our clients decided to go back in January."
Yeah, we're seeing that in LA as well.
Really?
Yeah, and then they want more space. They go, listen, because of COVID, we need about 6 feet between desks. We need a little more space.
Totally.
We are seeing that a little bit.
It's great to hear you validate that because and to see what's happening here is happening also there. But also one of you touch upon one of the $1 million questions that we get in that's, do we think occupiers are going to need less space? Is there going to be this huge reduction in footprint? And I've said all along, no. And that's because while visits to the office and frequency may be, we may be less frequent. We may not be going into the office 5 days a week, depending on our commute. But that doesn't necessarily translate into less space because we're going to be using it differently. Because when people come into the office, typically, we have the, linear benching and high density linear benching, but people are saying, well, I can kind of do that kind of heads down work anywhere. I really want to come in, throw some ideas on a whiteboard, meet with my team, ideate, collaborate, all the 8s. And that requires double the square footage. So now if you were working on a density of 150 square feet per employee, now you're, to use that space in that way, you're spread out, and you're like 350 square feet per employee. You need more space. And now with rents coming down, you could afford to do it. Yeah.
Are you guys seeing return to office pretty strong, or are they looking for first quarter next? Not yet.
January was we had a lot of momentum in January. The vaccine was getting rolled out. There was a lot of confidence. It really started to feel normal. January, February, March, tour activity. We normally in our market pre-COVID, we had about 7 million square feet of tenant demand. And that basically just fell right off the cliff. And around the beginning of 2021, it ticked back up to about 3.25 million square feet. So we were really picking up in terms of tenants in the market. There was over 3 million square feet of demand in the market for space. And once the Delta variant hit, it was screeching halt. I would say though, in the last couple of weeks, touring activity has started to really pick back up. I looked at a space with a client yesterday where there was a tenant before us and after us leaving the space.
Sure.
So we're like, who are these guys? I think when we were initially gunning for a Labor Day return to the office, Delta just kiboshed that. And now really looking at January and generally Q1. But I think that's the date that we're all operating with right now.
Yeah.
And that's
kind of what we're hearing too. It's downtown LA. You're talking to people that's, their first quarter. And this is a lot of banking clients. They're saying, not till first quarter of next year. Going into the holidays, everybody's going to work from home. What are you guys seeing with the hybrid work model? Are you seeing a lot of that?
I mean, I think hybrid is not a blip, it's a trend. And we've all, COVID's interesting because we all were subject to it. It affected us all,
Yeah.
from the C-suite down to your new hire fresh out of college.
Absolutely.
So we all kind of are experiencing this at once. And it really forced us to take stock of our role, of our job, and unpack the various parts of what we do at work. And what we learned was two main things. One, we get a lot of time back when we don't commute, getting ready, putting on clothes, driving, looking for parking, what have you. There's a whole lot of time that we have recaptured by not commuting to an office. And we also understood that we don't need to do 100% of our job at a desk at an office, and that we've learned that we're actually more productive in some ways when we're not at the office because of distractions or what have you. So what that has translated into is we just don't need to, and when I say we, many people, many employees and many companies and organizations have realized that we probably don't need to commute and sit down at a desk 5 days a week. And that is the hybrid model where we say, okay, you know what? You do these 3 things more effectively when you're in person with your team, but these 2 things you actually do way more effectively when you're at a cafe or at home or at your Tahoe place or anywhere but here. So don't come in, just come in and use the space most effectively. We have a return to office survey that we've been giving to our clients over the last year and a half. And the insights have been incredible and incredibly valuable. But one thing that we learned through these RTO surveys that we've been giving to everyone is that there's a direct correlation between the pain of someone's commute and the length of someone's commute and their appetite to come in to the office and the frequency. And it almost seems, it's so rhetorical and obvious, but we have the data. And someone who has to drive an hour to San Mateo or Sunnyvale or Cupertino wants to come in maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Yet the people who walk to work are fine coming in 5 days a week.
Yeah. And I get that. I mean, you got to look at efficiencies, and, I really think that we're going to see a lot of, I don't know about San Francisco, but here in LA, you're seeing that the hybrid model is really something that we're taking a look at. Everybody kind of, and I think it's going to change the way we do office here. And, but I think it'll be a good thing. I think less people on the road all the time, hopefully anyway. And hopefully productivity, everybody keeps going back to productivity, but I think if you do it right, productivity can stay in place.
I agree. I was on the phone the other day with a friend who is very high up at a very big bank. And she told me that her bank had double growth, 2x growth in their particular lending department over COVID. And she said part of it was the fact that her team, by not having to get up and put on clothes and do hair and makeup and breakfast, all the things, and then and commuting and looking for parking and stopping and getting coffee, that translated into higher productivity because they were at their desk at 7 working instead of picking out what they were going to wear for the day. Also, she's an incredible manager, so it's also due to her.
There's the secret recipe.
Effectively.
the management and monitoring the productivity. When somebody's falling behind, you need to figure out why. Have a conversation with them. But I think it's and I think San Francisco. We just kept hearing all the negative news, and I'm like, I just can't believe it's as bad as everybody's saying it is. And then we had an agent join our team from Northern California. He goes, no, it's not as bad. He goes, there's areas that are bad, just like you said. And but I look forward to getting San Francisco back on track. And Benjamin, thank you for coming on today and giving us the insight on San Francisco. We're pulling for you from Southern California. Hopefully you guys turn around quickly. And everybody watching, thank you for tuning in. Now, if you guys want to get a hold of Benjamin, I'm going to put his contact information down below. Reach out to him. If you have office or retail, Benjamin can handle it for you in San Francisco. So Benjamin, thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.